Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes? Matt here from YoVideogames, back again with another list video. Actually, I don't do these often, but hey, this is the perfect time to do it as we leave this absolute dumpster fire of a year that was 2020. Now, a lot of terrible things happened this year, but we did get some pretty good video games, all things considered, even with the delays, even with the pushbacks, and what have you. But, you know, not being said, it's not like there wasn't a slew of really good, really fun video games that came out in 2020. In fact, it might have been a year where you would think that a lot of video games got a lot more attention than they normally did, but interestingly enough, I feel a lot of games that were really good still flew under a lot of people's radar, some of which made my best of 2020 list. So without further ado, here are my top 10 video games that released in 2020 that I played. And I say that as a little asterisk because this is games that I played. There might be a game you might be upset that's not on the list that, frankly, I didn't play it, so I'm not going to count it. That doesn't mean that the game doesn't deserve to be on the list, but it just means that I didn't play it. Also, it's my list, not your list, so whatever, deal with it. Number 10. Resident Evil 3. Yeah, I know, this is not the highest quality game. That's why it's 10th, not 1st, or even 3rd or 5th. But I did have a lot of fun with Resident Evil 3. I thought Resident Evil 2 Remake was a fantastic game. In fact, it was probably my favorite game that came out last year, or I guess 2 years ago now, shit. But this game is just not as good, and I think most people can agree with that. I don't know how many people would sit there and argue this game is better than RE2 Remake. I don't think there's a lot. But yeah, so RE2 Remake, number 1 game for like 2019. This is about number 10 for me for 2020. I liked it though. I think that, you know, I understand where people say that, you know, hey, it cut out a lot of stuff. And that is true kind of looking back at it. I only went through Resident Evil 3 once on the Dreamcast with Max, and I didn't really enjoy it as much as a lot of other people seem to. It just felt like a weaker version of RE2 to me. And there we go, history repeats itself again. Resident Evil 3 Remake is sort of just a less good version of Resident Evil 2 Remake. However, I understand with the problems people have with it. Now, I could list all the little nitpicks, but you know what? It was still a fun romp. You know, it still brought more Resident Evil Remake goodness into the fold, and that's always a fun thing. The characters were fun. The dialogue was fun, at least. Kind of interesting to see the sort of reinterpretation of Jill and Carlos was interesting, and then even Nikolai was interesting, sort of, where he's just this angry older Eastern European version of Nero from Devil May Cry, but that's what it looks like anyways. But no, I had a lot of fun with the game. There are problems with it. Nemesis feels more of a showpiece villain, or like a, you know, every so often a boss fight rather than a constant threat that hunts you. The last boss is straight up broken on the 2 hardest difficulties. Broken in a sense where, like, I don't know that anyone actually tested this shit. So, yeah, that being said, I think you have a good time. There's a lot of stuff that you get for beating the game. There's a lot of incentive to, like, unlock extra, like, weapons and goodies and costumes and stuff. They have, like, this sort of, like, economy or, like money-based, point-based system for unlocking stuff, which I don't think RE2 necessarily had the same way. So that was kind of fun. I like that. It did come with a multiplayer mode that only Steve cares about. You know, it wasn't much. I didn't much enjoy it too much, but you know, it's there. It's part of the package, and you know, hey, I had a slight amount of fun trying it once, never again. But yeah, Resident Evil 3, it's a fun game. It's a good time. It's definitely a replayable Resident Evil, even if it's not the best. But hey, any game that lets me or gets me to replay it, pretty good in my book. Number 9, Doom Eternal. Now, this game also follows up one of the best games of 2016 for me, which was just, I guess, called Doom. Sad that it wasn't called Doom 4, because that would make things real easy for me, but whatever. Following up on the last Doom, which I absolutely loved, this game definitely added a lot of stuff, and some people really didn't quite like the sort of I guess, platforming, air jumping stuff. I actually really loved that. In fact, I also really love the fact that there were times where it became more of a first-person platformer rather than shooter, and this is where I think a lot of people sort of, like, have their argument. To me, I love that. What I didn't quite love as much about Doom Eternal, which is why it's 9th, not, you know, as opposed to 1st, like the last game that came out, is that it really went for a more survivalist ammo, or regards to ammo. But went for a more like survival horror almost aspect, where like ammo is a lot more scarce. They have a new system that works with the chainsaw, so you're kind of supposed to use that a lot more. But even that can sometimes be, you know, a bit of a pain where you just don't get enough ammo, so you're constantly swapping around. And I think to me that's where I lose it a little bit on the sequel here. I actually really do like the air dashing. I love the hook shot. I love all of that stuff. And I do like how there are like sort of breaks between like the all-out assaults and then the platforming sections. But yeah, like the running around looking for any ammo, that kind of got old. I actually didn't like that, and that was probably the only thing that sort of like knocks this sequel down a bit for me, is that I don't really like the distribution of ammo in the game, because at the end of the day, like when you run out and you're kind of frantically hoping for your chainsaw fuel to like auto refill and chop some people up, get a little bit of ammo, and then that goes out really quickly. To me, that got in the way a bit of the fighting, of the frantic shootouts, where it just became, shit, now I gotta run around and look for some ammo, or like look for someone to like chop or something. So I don't know, but still, it's still a lot of fun. It's still really good. It's amazing on PC if you can get it. If you can get like 120 frames, you know, on high settings, this game, you know, blows your dick off with just how fun and fast paced it is. It's a really good game. I like it a lot. But I do think that the ammo scarcity kind of tends to get in the way of the shooting and then the playing and the enjoyment, rather than make it more of a, oh my god, thrilling, like, you know, just one more bullet to finish off. Nah, wasn't feeling that as much, but I still had a really good time with it. I still think it's definitely worth a playthrough, and especially if you've got a high-end PC for it, definitely check it out. Number 8 is the Pathless. Now here's one of the games that flew way under everyone's radar. It's made by Giant Squid, who made Abzu, which is some of the people who worked on Journey. And again, like as sort of Abzu was Journey underwater, this is an interesting take, because the Pathless, you look at it and like you can definitely see the roots of Giant Squid's past, but it adds a lot more, I guess you could say, gamey stuff to it, because now you have boss battles, you have like really interesting puzzle elements. There's like a weird sort of running mechanism where like as you run, you want to hit these little diamonds like floating around everywhere that keep your boost meter filled up, and it gives you this great sense of like speed and maintaining momentum and stuff. So it's kind of like blending like a proper 3D Sonic and Zelda and Journey all together. And yeah, it's really cool. It has like a sort of, I guess you could say, vague show not tell kind of storyline, which is good. I think is good enough for what it is, but there is more going on there. You do kind of want to know a little more than maybe the game gives you, but at the same time, I think if you've gone through Abzu and you jump into Pathless, I think you'll find a lot to love with the sort of environmental-based storytelling. It's a lot of fun. I played it on PS5, so I can't say as to the quality of the version of the game on other consoles or phones or whatever, but I can say like on PS5, it ran great. The bosses were really thrilling. They were like, they always do this thing where like you do a chase sequence and then you do like a fight sequence, and they were fun. They were very, I guess you could say, just very gamey, where it's like, okay, here, this boss has this obvious weak points and you gotta like hit them, or you gotta wait for them to open up these obvious weak points. Very Zelda-y in its nature, and just really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. I think it's a really great game. If you ever liked games like Journey and Abzu, and you were just like, I wish there was just a little bit more to do. I wish there was a little bit more action, right? Or some sort of element to that, where you wanted a little more meat on the bone. This is that game. This is the game that takes that sort of light puzzle / walking simulator aspect, but then puts more video game stuff, more puzzle elements, more action stuff, boss battles, etc. So this is a really cool game, and I really think it's unfortunate that so many people sort of forgot about it. I forgot about it for a while too, but I was there for launch day one when it came out. First thing I played on my PS5, and I have no regrets about it. I think you should check it out. I think it's flown way too far under people's radar, and it's definitely worth your time. Number 7 is Streets of Rage 4. Another beautiful sequel to a Genesis era franchise from Sega, not made by Sega, but possibly one of the best in its own series. This is, I mean, not to get too far off topic here, but man, it is weird how everyone but Sega is interested in making Sega games, and everyone but Sega can make great Sega games. So, but regardless, this game turned out great. There was some early footage where I was like, I mean, it looks okay. You know, there's some maybe a little hesitancy with maybe like how like would the characters blend too much in the background? Yeah, you know, whatever. But you know, on release, everything seems to be ironed out, smoothed out. Like I never really was lost or anything like that. The music's great. They even got some classic composers like Yuzo Koshiro, and I think Yoko Shimomura even composed a track, and a bunch of other brand new composers came in, did a lot of really great stuff. It's a bumpin' soundtrack. It's got up to 4-player couch co-op, a 2-player online, which I really appreciate because there's been a lot of games that have come out and are still coming out even next year where it's a multiplayer-centric co-op game, but there's no online, and it's like, I don't fucking get it. You know, I'm looking at you, Double Dragon. You're on a fantastic beat-em-up that's just came out on Switch with no online, and it's like, God, that's so fucking weird and shitty. But anyways, this game's great. It has unlockable characters, a lot of them being just the old Genesis versions of characters, but there's a few unique new characters to unlock. They all feel great. I really love how each character has a complete different feel to them. Like you're not kind of just picking the looks of the character. You are picking a play style for the character as well, and that feels great. It's got just the right amount of stages and boss fights. I feel like the combat's just good, and just enough right. It has just enough with your uniqueness of each character that it doesn't feel super repetitive. It's not like, oh, I'm just kind of like pressing the same one button attack or jump attack, jump attack, jump attack. Well, if you're Cherry, you can certainly get away with that. But yeah, it's a game with a lot of unique different boss encounters, bumping soundtrack. It just feels great. This is definitely the Sonic Mania of Streets of Rage, and I think it's getting some DLC maybe next year, which is also great. But yeah, this is a fantastic game. Loved it. Played through it multiple times, different difficulties, and again, any game that can make me do that is a winner in my book. So I really enjoyed the hell out of this game. I think a lot of people, if you love the belt scroller beat 'em up genre of the past, this is definitely going to be a title you want to check out. Looks great, plays great, definitely up there. Number 6. Ori and the Will of the Wisps. This game is just simply fantastic. Follow-up to the last great Ori and the Blind Forest, which again I think was another one of my game of the years from the year it came out. It's a Metroidvania at its heart. This one adds a lot more combat to it because the last game was very much just like if you see an enemy, mash the attack button. This little Wisp Navi character will just do the work for you. This tries to up the ante a bit. You get like swords, spears, hammers that Ori himself actually wields. It's one of those weird things where it's like, okay, it's a very Guacamelee 2 situation for me, where it's like it's a great follow-up. It's more of what you love. It's more of that sort of beautiful atmospheric storytelling style Metroidvania from the first game. It doesn't, again, beyond the combat, it doesn't do a whole lot new, or it doesn't have that sort of, oh my god, I've never seen anything like this. It definitely looks better. Like they've really upped their animation graphic polish on this one, even beyond the first one. But the first one was like, it looks so good, so that this one looking even better, it doesn't quite have that first time, witnessing such a beautiful looking game. Which is not to say it's not. It's just sort of like they did such a good job the first time that even when they do better, it's not quite as mind-blowing, I guess, but it's still really good. Like, this is one of the most beautiful games you'll play this year. It's got a great soundtrack, probably one of the better soundtracks you'll hear this year. Everything's really good about it. I don't really have a lot to say negatively other than it is more of what you love from the first story, which I don't think, couldn't really ask for anything more. It's the best Metroidvania you'll play this year. It's probably one of the best Metroidvania. Honestly, it's probably the best Metroidvania I played since the first Ori, and that's saying something because there's been a lot of really, really good Metroidvanias that have come out since the first Ori. But I think the strength of this one is that it knows when to sort of call it. Like when, you know, it knows the perfect length of time where it's like, okay, any longer than this and we would have been dragging it out. And that's the thing that it really excels in. It's not dragged out. It's gimmick. It doesn't have any like crazy weird gimmick that sort of gets in the way of enjoying or traversing. Like, again, the biggest new gimmick of the game is the new combat abilities, which are great. That's all you really wanted. I couldn't ask for you know, I wouldn't want anything else to be changed with Ori. Just change the, you know, just upend the combat, which they did. So I really like the game. It did hard crash on me a couple times, but again, this was at launch, and that was on PC. I'm fairly certain by now most of those kinks have been ironed out. I don't, you know, otherwise, this is going to be one of the best Metroidvanias you play. And again, you know, it's not down on my list because I think it's bad or anything. It's just that you know, these games, pretty much like the top like 8 games of my list are so good they could almost go anywhere, right? This is, I try to ignore the ordering a bit for the rest of this video, because like everything from like Pathless up to me is kind of like, they're all in the sort of like general, they're all great. You should all play them. But yeah, Ori Will of the Wisps, one of the best games of the year. You should absolutely play it. It's on PC, it's on Xbox, and it's on Switch. And the Switch version apparently runs fantastic. So yeah, everyone but Sony owners, you've got an amazing Metroidvania waiting for you, and you should absolutely check them out. Number 5 is Hades, the game some people will not shut the fuck up about. For good reason, though. It's a really good, fun game. You look at it and you think Diablo, but it's nothing like Diablo. You know, it's a roguelite game that, which is a genre I've never really dabbled in. The concept of roguelites to me sound horrible. I don't have any interest in them. But what interested me in Hades, and I think what is one of the strongest points, is that it takes the genre, and then it takes its storyline, and then it finds a way to make that storyline fit perfectly in with the genre. So the whole idea of live, die, repeat is woven into the fabric of the storytelling of the game, and it's done in a very smart, clever way. There's a shit ton of dialogue in this game, and all kinds of dialogue that accounts for all kinds of different things, whether you beat the game, whether you die a bunch, where you die, that all changes all kinds of dialogue. It's very well done. It is one of the most, you know, I guess you could say, polished small studio projects you could find. It's, you know, there are things I'm still not super crazy about, but that is just sort of part of the genre. The fact that you can't really have full control over your weapon and movement, or the moves you get, the boons you get, the bonuses you get. Like, having no control over what you'll be able to use in your attacks is still a little annoying, but like the more you play, the more you get stuff that pushes things in your favor. So like you basically get more control over stuff. The first hours, I feel, can be a little rough, but as you keep playing, you unlock more weapons, and those weapons really do change up the gameplay, and then you eventually unlock variations of the weapons you unlock. So there's just so much. It feels like, okay, it's a 4-level game, and even the 4th level is basically sort of like a half level, sort of a gimme. So you might think, well, there's really not much to it. Oh, but there is. It's sort of like, in a sense, like how Yakuza. Oh, it's a tiny little game map, but you can't believe the amount of shit they packed into that tiny little game map. And Hades is the same way, where it's like, okay, so there's not a lot of areas to roam around, and it's only like 4 levels, really 3.5. You can't believe the amount of shit there is to do, you know, stuff to unlock, you know, dialogues to exchange, like lore to learn, stuff like that. It's insane. Like, this is very much like an iceberg situation, where it's like you have a little tiny iceberg on the surface of the water, but it's like this big fat motherfucking, you know, fat ass ice, you know, ice sheet underneath. So hidden depth, wonderful game, just a blast to play. It gets you stuck in this addictive routine of just one more try. You know, it's great for speedrunners. It's great for casual play. It's great for people who are just interested in the story. Shit, this game is just a blast to play, no matter what. And I think that even if you're not really like super down with some of the idea of the genre, I think there's enough here to really sort of, you can sort of like muscle past some of the things you may or may not like about the genre, because I think there's enough quality here in just about every aspect that, yeah, it's not really going to matter that you know, you may not have the ability to control your destiny as much as you want. But either way, blast of a game. Super addictive. This thing is going to save my life on plane flights when the apocalypse is over and I can travel again. But God knows when that'll be. Number 4, Final Fantasy VII Remake. This game, fantastic. I think, starting off, the thing I think a lot of people don't give enough credit to this game for is the dialogue, the characterization, the localization in particular, and the way they updated things within the game. And to me, that was probably the most mind-boggling thing, because, to be frank, and the storytelling, the writing, even when as the localization has just gotten better and better and better and better over time, it can't save a mangled story. And coming off of their last big game, which was Kingdom Hearts 3, yeah, I was damn worried about what was going to happen with 7 Remake. And looking back at Dirge of Cerberus even, and even the way like a lot of like dialogue and cutscenes play out in Crisis Core. Like people have their love for Crisis Core, but the dialogue is still very awkward and just sort of just weird, and introduces a lot of really ideas and characters. And I had a big concern going into 7 Remake that like it was going to be way more compilation of Final Fantasy 7 than actual Final Fantasy 7, and that's kind of actually not true. They actually not only did they stay true to the roots of the characters in 7, but they updated them in smart ways that feel natural and feel really good. This is one thing people have a weird thing is like when Aerith says shit and when she almost falls off a ladder. To me, it just came across as like this feels way more realistic. Feels more true to her character considering her upbringing and where she's been brought up and stuff like that. Tifa feels exactly as she should. I do feel that there could have been a better solution. I think they had a better solution maybe. I understand where there's some complaints with Barrett. Barrett is true to his character from 97, but I do feel that they originally had Bo Billingsley playing a much more toned down Barrett in the initial trailers, and I feel that's probably the way they should have gone. I understand how it's like, oh, but this is more true to the original game, and that is fair, but I also do see the other side of it where it does feel sort of cartoonishly stereotyped. Where the thing is that 7 is a game full of stereotypes. The thing is, I understand where Barrett's stereotype, it may not be the best. It may not have been a stereotype you wanted to keep. Like keeping people like Heidegger and I don't know, her name was Scarlet, whatever the Shinra bitch lady. Keeping them stereotypically cartoonish villains, that's fine. That's not a problem. But I do see there's some legitimate debate to be had with Barrett. But I do think he gets good moments, and I do think the stuff with him and Marlene is fantastic, and I like that they keep that. And yeah, there are moments like running up the Shinra Tower. Like, they do a really great thing. Instead of, using sort of an offensive slang anymore, you just have these moments where, like, they're going insane as they're climbing the staircase, and I really appreciate that. That was, like, a smart upgrade. Like, and then Barrett just going, this sucks. Like, I want to go back. Like, stuff like that. Moments like that are just fantastic because, like, they're true to the core of the original game, but they're not so dated anymore. And getting even further... My God, the Honeybee Inn is the most brilliant, genius way to take that weird, awkward-ass moment from the original game, and you keep everything that it is, but you add to it. It with the Saints Row 4 era of, like, we're not going to be, we're just going to be ultra-inclusive. We're still going to be this fucking weird... dirty, like, sex club, sort of, but they turned it into a cabaret, which was also a really smart idea. But it's still got that, like, private room shit. You can still see Palmer running around trying to, like, catch a honeybee and shit like that. So you still have those moments in the Honeybee Inn, but then you have this sort of cabaret dance number, which is fucking brilliant. And the owner of the Honeybee is this possibly non-binary owner who's fantastic, voiced really well. Everything about that is fucking great. I think the Honeybee Inn, the whole segment in that sector, Wall Street, fucking great. What's not great though is that, yeah, the level design is ass in the game. It's not even sort of like, oh well, like it could have been better. No, it's fucking, like, it's straight up fucking terrible sometimes. Like the Sector 5 reactor in particular, like the switchback hallways, leads to a great boss fight with the airbuster, but like, just the general like running around the junkyard, getting back to Sector 7 with Aerith is not great. Having to go back into the sewers for that bitch Leslie, fucking awful. There's some moments, there's some design decisions in this game that are just not great, and then there's some that are actually pretty cool and fun and intriguing and new, like going up to Jesse's house, and I know there was at least one other thing that was added that was pretty cool. The lab. We're falling into the lab underneath, getting Wedge and Barrett back. Like, that was pretty cool. I like seeing that underground. I mean, it is sort of dangerously flirting with fucking Dirge of Cerberus there, but at least it was like a interesting, fun addition, even if the level design, again, wasn't quite up to par. It's definitely a game that I think has great battle system, by the way, too. I could never go back to the old turn-based system. They took real time, and they took the materia system. They found a way to harmonize it really well. Plays beautifully. I don't want to fucking play an old ass style Final Fantasy game after this. This battle system was too good. So that actually really helps. It helps you really ignore how just blatantly shitty the level design on the game is by having a great combat system, having great characters that don't sound like weird cringe factories that the Kingdom Hearts franchise has become now. So I feel like the big fucking wart on this game is kind of easy to ignore, especially the first time through. But when you go through the game and when you try to when I went back and I was just trying to tie up any loose ends, load past saves, trying to see all the different variations you could get in Wall Street and stuff like that, that's when it really hits you. I'm like, yeah, the level design in this game sucks. And that's when the warp becomes noticeable, sort of on the replay. Like when you redo the game or New Game Plus, then it's kind of like, yeah, there's not a lot here. Yeah. That's not to say like I feel like the game is cheap or like, oh, it's shortchanged you, it gave you like a tiny little game. It's about a 25-30 hour experience and more if you do everything that the game has to offer, which isn't a lot. It's mostly like a lot of just battle arena stuff. Whether it's VR battle arena or like the Don Corneo arena shit. Sadly, I wish there was more to discover in the game world, but the game world's honestly pretty small. There's not a lot to it. And again, the level design's not great. So, yeah, it's a fantastic game. I felt I got my money's worth. I felt that it was to me the game was more of a sigh of relief. Like, okay, they didn't. Like, thank God they didn't fuck it up. Like, the characters are the way they should be. The music's remixed and beautiful. And like, I couldn't believe how well some of these remixes came out. The combat system is fan-fucking-tastic. The only thing that really needs to improve at this point is like you fix the fucking level design. If they can fix the level design for the next part of the game, you're gonna have a game that absolutely lives up to that sort of best of all time moniker. Because everything's kind of here. Most everything is fucking here for 7 to be everything anyone ever wanted it to be. It's just that, yeah, they just need to fix a bit of the level. Like they need to make things a lot more interesting, from a world standpoint with the next title going forward. Kind of turned into a Final 7 review there, but fuck it, that's what you all want to hear about the most of anyways. I know it is, but moving on. Okay, top 3. Number 3, best game 2020. Samurai Jack Battle Through Time. Now this is another one, flew way under everyone's radar. Comes from Adult Swim Games. They mostly publish really, really budget indie stuff. This is a 3D game, which looks okay. It looks good. Sometimes it has some nice looking areas, but yeah, it's a very simplistic graphically game. But what it does have is a combat system that is the best I've felt all year long. This is the best real-time combat of the year. It comes from Salil, who's not all, but it's mostly ex-Team Ninja people. These are all people who made the Ninja Gaiden games on the Xbox, and guess what? It really feels like that. This is very much a spiritual successor to the Ninja Gaiden Xbox series of games, and it feels fucking fantastic. This game had that raw, visceral, like, you press a button, you get a reaction immediately, but like the enemies on the harder difficulties do not let up. You have to like really push through. I loved this game. I played through this game like 3 times, which I just don't do for a lot of video games, and I would up the difficulty. And in fact, the game does a disservice by letting you choose hard, because hard is not a typical difficulty like, oh, the enemies do more damage. No. The game is absolutely designed around play it on normal first, earn abilities, unlock abilities, then play it on hard, because we change up all the enemy encounters on every higher difficulty. And when you start hard, you are meant to be able to have dodges and parries and stuff, because we're going to throw a bunch of enemies that fire like, you know, projectiles at you nonstop right at the beginning of hard. So don't play this game on hard first. Play through it on normal. And it's going to be a little easy at the start. Then you get to the end of normal, like, okay, they're upping the ante. And then you get to hard, and it's like, hard is like immediately feels like the next level after, you know, the hardest part of normal. And then it just gets higher and higher, and you have like Master Samurai and Master of Masters. So you get up there, and the game goes up into that, you know, that nice, you know, ball punching difficulty eventually. Fantastic game. Like, the thing is, like, this is one of those things where, hey, you know, I get it, it's not the biggest looker, but you know what it is? It is the most fucking, you know, fun combat system I played all year long. Like, you know, it's a good enough few amount of levels. I want to say there was around like 10 levels or so. Whatever the amount of levels are, it's just about the right amount. Some of the early levels are much longer than some of the later levels, but even some of the later levels are pretty fucking long. But yeah, this is a fantastic video game. I loved it. If you want a game that's all about the gameplay first above all else, this is that game. Because if you were missing that sort of platinum Capcom Team Ninja, like proper Team Ninja style of combat, I'm not talking about Neo, because Neo's in that Soulsy area, but if you wanted that Ninja Gaiden style combat, you know, that character action driven thing, this is the game for you. Like, you really need to play Samurai Jack Battle Through Time if you love character action games. In particular, if you love the Ninja Gaiden Xbox style of character action games, this is the game for you. You're missing out if you haven't played it. This game was fantastic, and even better, this game has a secret ending, which is hand animated, which is completely new and unique. It ends the fucking whole franchise on a fucking epilogue note. So, like, if you want to see the final true ending to the entire Samurai Jack saga, you got to play through this game. You can get the secret ending on normal. You don't actually have to play through it on super hard or nothing like that. So that's cool. But yeah, you got to see, if you're a fan of the show, you done yourself an insane disservice by not playing this game, because you get the true ending to the franchise from this video game if you get the secret ending. So fucking go for it. The game is a fucking blast to play. I can't rave enough about it. It's basically, you know, it's like more like Ninja Gaiden mostly. I mean, you have like your sword, you have your fisticuffs, you have hand-to-hand combat, you have hammer and scythes and all kinds of other. You have guns and bows and arrows. It's nuts. Like, this game has so much for it in the combat system. Like, granted, okay, there's not a lot else to it, but it's like Ninja Gaiden. You know, you play through these basically like these linear corridor-based levels, and you fucking fight waves of enemies, and it feels fucking great to do it. You gotta play this game. Totally worth it. Worth it for fans of the show, of course. Worth it for fans of Ninja Gaiden, because it feels so similar to it. So you gotta check it out. So good. Number 3 game for me this year. Number 2 game for me, Ghost of Tsushima. Now, this kind of goes without saying. This was a open world historical, not fantasy. Well, the multiplayer goes fantasy, but like, it's not quite fantasy. There is one thing that feels a little like nutty fantasy with one of the bows, but it's based off the first Mongolian invasion of the island of Tsushima, Japan. And I mean, I think fans of Assassin's Creed and stuff will probably take to this really well. But what this game does that the other games didn't is that it just feels good to play, and it's got enough tangible rewards where, okay, cool, you can find cool stuff in the environment, but there's not this unbelievably overwhelming, like, fuck ton of shit to do. Like, it's not like this weird Ubisoft style checklist of like way too much shit on the map to take care of. It doesn't. It tells a very focused cinematic linear story that most of the side missions all tie into the main mission in some way, usually as well. And, you know, the big thing, too, is that this is gorgeous. This is one of the best-looking fucking video games on the market. Came out in summer on PS4, you know, and it's still probably one of the best-looking video games out there right now. It does, you know, it does have a, you know, goes for the realistic look, but it has just a tinge of stylization, or I guess you could say more romanticization because it's like, okay, it's realistic, but we're gonna have the most fucking beautiful landscapes you've ever seen in a realistic style, like, just period. Like, even though there probably isn't anywhere in the world that's as beautiful as this game, including the real Tsushima Island, we're just gonna completely just blast you in the face with just fucking amazing views, vistas, weather effects, you know, just environmental effects and stuff, just constantly. Loved the game. The combat was really good. Wasn't as good as, say, Samurai Jack, but, you know, whatever. Like, lots of things to unlock, lots of little, you know, ways to attack and fight in the game. I love how you get, like, you unlock abilities like sticky bombs and smoke bombs and stuff like that. So you can kind of, like, basically go from samurai to ninja. The storyline was really fun. It's a very romanticized view of the samurai culture. Obviously, it's not historically accurate in that sense, but it is fun to see how, like, they do have a lot of, I guess, not necessarily time accurate, but it is accurate to the history of the entire country of both Japan and Mongolia. So you'll actually see things that absolutely do exist in real life. Maybe didn't quite exist when this game took place, the big one being samurai blades themselves. But yeah, you're still going to see a game that has a lot of really love and care and attention put into it, and it's very polished. That's another thing that's you don't get to say that about open worlds very much, and this is a very polished open world. Everything looks and feels and runs well. It's not a glitch fest like a lot of other games that are open world. But yeah, it's gorgeous. It's fun to play. The combat's great, and then they added a huge free multiplayer expansion later on in around October time, and yeah, now you have a game that has an outstanding single-player campaign and a beautiful-ass open world that you'll absolutely want to spend time being lost in, 100%. And then you have this great fucking multiplayer campaign with tons of things to unlock and get there, with no microtransactions. And it's wonderful. It's the full fucking package. This is one of the best games Sony has ever published. And the only game I've ever purchased from Sucker Punch. Maybe I missed the boat on Sucker Punch before with all their Sly Coopers, Infamouses, or, you know, Sprocket, Robot Wheels. But you know what? This game was fantastic. One of the best games Sony's ever published. I loved it. And number one, best video game of 2020, Xenoblade Definitive Edition. You knew this was coming if you know me. Now, granted, this is more of a remaster. It's mostly the Wii game with updated or up-res textures. They did change all the head models on the characters and all the hand models, so cutscenes definitely play out a lot better. The emotion is portrayed way better now with the new head models on the characters. There is quality of life additions with the quest tracking. You have fashion souls now where you can equip armor that has, you know, this is the armor that's equipped, but this is the armor that appears on you, and you can vary it up. You know, everything head to toe can be, you know, unique to you. They added a whole battle arena with new stuff and brand new costumes to unlock. So they definitely did some good changes there. And then they added a 10-hour epilogue to the game, which gives you a brand new area to explore in, a slightly tweaked battle system, a whole slew of new bosses to fight, and a whole new storyline that is supposedly going to have connections to whatever Monolith Soft does next for Xenoblade. So, yeah, this is again, this is one of the best fucking JRPGs in the last 10 years. It's probably, well, you know, up there with one of the best. The only competing with itself with other Monolith Soft RPGs. This is the game for me that personally saved the genre for me. Things were looking pretty dire 10 years ago for JRPGs. You had absolute fucking trash like Final Fantasy 13 and Star Ocean 4 dominating the market, and then even the games that were not trash were okay at best. It was a dark time for JRPGs during the dawn of the HD era. You know, your Infinite Undiscoveries and all that crap. But this game kind of really came in and really saved the genre. And it's doing what JRPGs I feel should have done, and and that is it's not scaling back, because every generation since the PlayStation 1 era, they've just scaled back their scope, their ambition, their world size, their storylines. Everything just kept getting scaled back, scaled back, scaled back. So all it became at the end of the day was a fucking corridor that you run down and watch fucking like confusing ass jargon being mumbled out in long-winded cutscenes. This game bucked that trend and said, no, we're gonna have fucking giant world maps. We're gonna have huge explorable areas that you go around in. We're gonna have a long, engaging story that that's easy enough to follow from the start, but like goes places by the end. We're going to do that, and we're not gonna compromise on our vision, or anything else. And that's what Xenoblade is, and that's what it represents. And that's why, even though it is mostly just a remaster, it does have, I feel, enough to it, because you're gonna get, if you do everything in Future Connected, that's a 20-hour extra gameplay, plus however many hours you want to spend in the new battle arena, plus anything else you wanted to like maybe check out and remaster, which obviously looks better, runs better, is absolutely the best way to play the original game. Has an entirely remixed or remastered soundtrack, which you can switch between on the fly. You can even switch between, I want remastered field music, but old school battle music, or vice versa, or any combination you want. This is how remasters should be done. It's definitely a step above something like, say, like Final Fantasy VIII remastered or whatever. This is what you want when you get when it's not quite a remake, but it's definitely got plenty of stuff, like 20 hours of new gameplay added with some quality of life features and a nice big facelift. Yeah, this is absolutely what you want in a remaster, and it's what I want in video games. This is what I want in video games. I want games that have giant, huge, explorable worlds that have fucking music in them. None of this environmental, like, moody, atmospheric bullshit. I'm playing a fucking video game. I want there to be goddamn music, and this game has goddamn music, and it's great music on top of it. It's not just music for the sake of music. It is fantastic fucking music. Everyone fucking knows how great the music is, and it's varied. The battle system is sort of this MMO light. Going back to it, I was sort of reminded of how, like, okay, this was the genesis of what was to come. It's it's good, it works, but it is like, okay, they did get way more creative with what they could do with the battle system in the later Xeno games, but it's always fun to go back, and it lets you play as different characters, and each character plays completely differently. Like Shulk is like your main dude. He plays like your standard style, but then you got characters like Charlotte, who's like healer, but then you got Melia, who plays this weird version of a mage. So like, yeah, and you can control other characters on a whim at any time as long as they're in your party, and their battle system plays differently from everyone else's, so that's always fun to dick around in. And there's just so much to see and do in this world, and it gets pretty much everything right. The voice acting is great. They even did like an auto lip sync thing this time for the new face models, which even Final Fantasy VII Remake did that as well, where they actually used AI lip syncing. So you're gonna get that. The game is just fucking world class, top notch, the best JRPG that's come out within this decade, possibly even like the only RPG that stands close to this within this fucking millennium is Skies of Arcadia, but it's absolutely the best JRPG, one of the best JRPGs since Skies of Arcadia. Again, the only thing better than Xenoblade is another Xenoblade. So yes, this is absolutely the best game I played in 2020. I'm still playing it. I've just gone through a new game plus. I'll probably play through Future Connected again. I've already dumped over 100 hours into this bad boy. I will dump more hours into it. I will enjoy all of them. And how many games can you sit there, look, and go, I played 100 hours of this game. I could play hours and hours more, maybe even 100 more. Not many, hardly any. But this game is the game to do it for me. This is my best game of 2020. Fuck all y'all who forgot about this game when it came time for RPGs and soundtracks in 2020. This is the best game of the year. And that's my final word on it. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you on the channel. Later, dudes.